Bonjour, hello, and welcome to another video where you get to ask me the questions. And I just thought I'd start with, obviously you can ask me, but I thought I'd just start with how bad TikTok's been recently. Like for example, I've got nearly 500 videos, and last night I think I had about 14 notifications, and seven of them was just one person liking 7 videos. So I think there's definitely a change in TikTok. And then also this morning I had a notification from TikTok, and it said, get 20% off of where you pay to get views on TikTok videos. And I thought, aha, that's probably why they're bringing them right down, so that then they can make you pay, because you'll want to pay, because you'll think the TikTok videos are right down. Okay, so a couple of questions have come in. Hi there, everybody. Jojo Blogs has wrote, what about redheads? Well, redheads are a wonderful breed, and so someone asked the question, where did the redheads fit into the scenario of why they're in Scotland the most. There's a video that I'm just about to release, but I thought I'd talk about it here if people are interested. So, believe it or not, Scotland actually had a lot of giants, and there's books out there where people's actually covered the giants in Scotland. Now, if you go along with the lines that the giants are the Nephilim, which are the offspring of the Anunnaki and humans, not all Nephilim were giants. Some of them were, 6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot, and then they started to go to the silly heights that are purported out there. So, along with the giants that moved around different locations that they could, so did the non-giant Nephilim. Now, these deliberately moved away from the Anunnaki, because when the Anunnaki realised that they didn't like some of these giants, then they sort of realised that they didn't actually like the Nephilim. Which is not to say that they didn't like all of them, because obviously they were offspring of the Anunnaki, but it's the King Anu and Enlil were the ones that really didn't like the idea that, which is interesting, because when you work out King Anu is supposedly Zeus, and Zeus, we all know, had Hercules. So if that's the case, which I'll be getting to in my video, so keep watching. So I don't want to give away spoilers. But if that's the case, then even King Anu, the main god Zeus, or Apollo, if you want to call him that in another location, but he obviously then had relationships with the human people. But basically, going back to the redheads, so the giants, most of the giants were redheads for whatever reason. So the giants seem to have settled in Scotland, and I'm guessing along with non-giant Nephilim, the smaller types. When I say smaller, anything from sort of 6 foot upwards, and that seems to correlate with mainstream. So as I say, there's a video coming out, and I sort of point to the locations of where mainstream also agree that these redheads did actually originate from, wait for it, hands up who knows, it's going to be Mesopotamia. And anyone that's watched my videos know that everything starts from Mesopotamia, which is, well, when I say everything, except for humans, which were first created in Africa by the Anunnaki, but everything technological, any language advancements, any math, anything like that, all started in Mesopotamia, which is ancient Iraq, Iran, that sort of area. It was also called Sumeria. There was an area there called Sumeria or Sumer. So the redheads, even mainstream agree that they originated from that area, which would make sense. So redheads, that's why you probably shouldn't mess with their temper, as they say. But watch my videos coming out. I sort of explain it a little bit more than that. So I'm just moving on to the next question. Joe asked, are they more connected to spiritual? No, not the Redheads. Not from my research. It's just, I think they're probably the Nephilim. Now, whether or not they have a different blood type to other people back then, that would be possible, because as you watch my videos coming up, you'll see that the amount of and I prove this using science as well, but the amount of different humans that were around, some have come and gone, and science has found that now. There was one recently, very recent, in fact 2 days ago, I got an email. I have updates on these things, and there's one called Bogius or something like that. I'm terrible at pronunciations, and that's brand new. That's literally just been found, a skeleton of a Homo sapiens sapiens. So when you look at one of my videos coming up, I explain that the Anunnaki had relationships with the humans that they created. The humans had relationships with the Nephilim, and then the Nephilim had relationships with the Neanderthals and the Homo erectus and so on, whoever was here, and so did the humans. And you end up with, a list of about 16 plus humans all breeding differently from one to another, and that's where we end up with the different colours, the different races, and I explain in the videos how the people from India, where they originally come from, and China, and it all makes sense. It makes sense a lot more. I know some people can say, well, the Chinese people came from Mars, because there's stories out there that they were indigenous people many years back, and they came to Earth because of the wars that they were having on Mars. But yes, they did have wars on Mars. I totally believe that. There's isotopes have been found on Mars which contain nuclear explosions, and you only get those from some sort of nuke. So I'll be getting back up to Mars on my videos again, covering that. But I don't think the Chinese were that. And again, mainstream collaborates my theories on where the Chinese people came from. So keep watching my videos and I'll go into detail. But going back to the spiritual, I don't think the Redheads are any different from any of the others, I'm afraid. Cyber bully, I'm guessing that's supposed to be without the U. I don't get how people can believe this. Well, actually, if you've watched any of the videos, you kind of got two choices really. You go along with mainstream, but there's so many holes in everything that the mainstream does. There's no rhyme or reason. It's just, you have to listen to them and that's it. And the reason why mainstream goes along with that, and let's go deep now, is because the institutions that teach these things, such as the universities, when you look up who funds the universities, it goes back to the big people like the Rockefellers. And once you realise the Rockefellers don't want us to know, and we know that because the Smithsonian destroyed all the giants, skeletons, and had a court case over it, and that was a genuine thing. Once you realise the Rockefellers don't want us to know, and we're being taught by mainstream, which is funded by the Rockefellers, the universities, then you can either believe that, or you can make your own mind up, or you can believe what I'm suggesting, which is, according to all the people that's following me, makes a hell of a lot more sense than the mainstream that have all these gaps. Plus also I'm just going along with the ancient writing, which some of this ancient writing was before man was even around, and that, you can't sort of argue with that. If man didn't write, who the hell did? So cyberbullies wrote too many coincidences. Well, see, good thing with what I'm doing with my videos is they're not coincidences. Nothing I've said really is a coincidence. Everything is backed up by mainstreams. When I say mainstream, because obviously I'm saying mainstream doesn't want, they do allow certain things. So mainstream, for example, agree that 300,000 years ago, the first humans, Homo sapiens sapiens, were in South Africa or Abzu. But the ancient writings say that 300,000 years ago, the Anunnaki created man in Africa. So it all makes sense. So I wouldn't say they're coincidences when you've got writing actually telling you, and then obviously the Bible then copies that writing. So it kind of, it's not coincidences. The giants in the causeway in Northern Ireland, Jojo Blogs has wrote. Yes. So there were giants in that got to Scotland, and then they crossed over to Ireland from the stories that go, as opposed to going to Ireland and then to Scotland. So I mean, there's a hell of a lot of stories out there of these giants and where they come from, and like I say, Scotland had its fair share of them. But that just, they're not just, they didn't just settle in Scotland. America even. The native Indians. I did a video showing, I think, probably at least 20 tribes or 20. I don't know what you call native Indians, factions or whatever. At least 20 of them had different names for these giants around America. So they do travel. Amanda's waving hands. Hi, Amanda. Flamingo has wrote, "Good morning. Make sure you've changed your name." Yes, you did. Thank you. I've got a drink here with me. Rotten Flesh has wrote, "Judas was a redhead." I'm slowly getting towards the Jesus times. I wasn't aware he was a redhead. Redhead lives matter. Okay, my son has red hair and bad temper. Yeah, anyone that knows anyone with red head, the old saying is, they have a fiery temper. And I personally believe that, actually. Aliens are demons. User 35 has wrote, "Aliens are demons. They flee from the name of Jesus." Well, that's actually a good point. You're kind of right and wrong, in my opinion. So the demons part is, as I've said so many times, but no one can answer. What is a demon? Describe a demon. No one can describe a demon because there's no such thing as a demon. There's a stereotypical evil thing that's called a demon. It goes back to me saying, what's a monster? Describe a monster to me. Because whatever your monster is won't be the same as my monster. So aliens are not demons per se, unless you want to tag them with the word evil. Because of that, I don't think there is such a thing as a demon. I think it's just a name we give to people like Bill Gates. To evil people. But they do flee from the name of Jesus. That is very correct. So there's been many cases where abductees have been abducted, and they use the word Jesus, and then the aliens then sort of let them go. My theory on that is because Jesus, in my opinion, was actually created by the Greys. And so when someone says that, it kind of makes the Greys realise that this person's actually clued up. Now, obviously, the person's not clued up because they're saying it in a different biblical, spiritual sense. But to me, I think the aliens think, okay, they're aware of us. They're aware of Jesus being created by us. In which case, we don't want this person. We'll let them go, drop them back into the ocean, so to speak. And that's my take on it. I might be completely wrong, but that's where I go along with it. And one of my upcoming videos will be explaining why and how the little Greys got involved with it, because there is actual carvings of the little Greys around that time. They used to be called ant people as well, although some people say that there is another race called the ant people, but I don't think there is. I think they're basing that on the strength of these carvings of the little Greys from around that time, which is after when the Anunnaki had left. Gemma has wrote, "My hair has red in it. I have a temper, but I keep it in." Well done. We don't want to see you in prison. Demons, On Point has wrote, "Demons flee from coronal sun emissions." So do redheads. They don't like the sun. They burn. Redhead lives matter. Yeah. Again, though, with the demons, I struggle with what a demon is, because whatever you say a demon is, my vision of a demon will be different. Same as monsters, you can't say what a monster is. You just say it's an unknown entity that's probably out to do harm. What is an orb? So Auntie has wrote, what is an orb? I found one. I'm guessing that's in my garden. So there's a couple of types of orbs, from what I understand. So there's the spiritual ones that are sort of before they join with someone, or after they've joined with someone, they become an orb. I have a feeling that the orbs are actually higher up the plane. So when you die, I don't think you become an orb there and then. I think the orbs. I don't know. I'm still unsure on this, but I think the orbs might be higher plane of existence. So we've got different planes. I don't know if you know. But anyway, so what is an orb? So you've also got the orbs that create the crop circles, and the orbs that come out of UFOs. So if it's in your garden and you can see it, my guess is it's one of those type. Nordics wrote Redheads. I have mentioned one of the first questions was about the Redheads, so unfortunately I don't want to sort of repeat myself, so forgive me, but I will put this on YouTube so you can go back and listen to what Redheads are wonderful and should rule the planet, unless you upset them, in which case run. Redheads, Rotten Fish Flesh has also wrote, Redheads also have a higher pain threshold. That's supposedly true. The Mythbusters did a video on that, if I remember correctly. And the Redheads came out that they did have a higher pain threshold. So that's, yeah, so Redheads rule. Kyle Roberts wrote, all true and more, thank you. Kyle Roberts wrote, there's pyramids in Oz and New Zealand. Yes, they're not. I'm slowly getting to when they were built on my videos. I know I've sort of already done pyramids way back, but that was just me skimming over everything. So as you move forward, my videos, I'm going to be covering a lot more, like I am with the Anunnaki. I still haven't even finished even scratched the surface on the Anunnaki yet. So I will be doing more on the Anunnaki. So we haven't even got to the floods yet and stuff. So keep watching, and then when I do get to the pyramids, I'll be going through them, in a fine tooth comb. If TikTok doesn't kick me off by then, because I hardly have any people watching my videos at the moment. My pronunciation is crap, but Kafia has wrote, great channel, thank you very much. Sizzly Boys wrote, it's all a load of nonsense. Yeah, okay. How do we map Antarctica before we visited or even saw Antarctica? That's a very good question. So the stories go that prior to us getting to Antarctica and mapping it, there was these ancient maps, and these ancient maps showed that the land mass was slightly different, and in fact it didn't even have ice on it. Now that makes sense, if you're in the lines that the Anunnaki could fly ships around, so straight away we know that they were, if you agree with me, then they're flying around and they're creating pyramids in different places, or allowing people to create pyramids in different places, shall we say. Now, supposedly there's pyramids in Antarctica, so it means someone at some point had been there, and over time ice obviously covered it, and so the military's there now. So my thoughts on it are that the ancient maps were actually correct, not with the dome thing, because forget that, because that means there'd have to be an ice wall all across the oceans, not just in Antarctica. But of course, the dome people don't mention that. They sort of make it seem like there's an ice wall all around, but obviously it's not, because ships do cross. But anyway, so yeah, I do think the maps were around and probably done by the Anunnaki, or people that had the ability to travel further, possibly using some of the tech that they had. Now, I know the Anunnaki originally obviously did stone maps and things like that, so they didn't have the paper maps that ended up being used to do these maps. So my thoughts are, I don't think it was the Anunnaki that would have drew the maps. I think it would have been some sort of human, but I think they would have had the technology. And you got to remember, the Anunnaki weren't daft. They actually created the Nile. They dug the Nile out deliberately. So if they can do that, and then obviously put ships on the Nile, then they had ships. But this is moving up in time to when the pyramids were done, which was sort of 10, 11, 12,000 years ago. So prior to that, obviously they were still creating some sort of ships. So it wouldn't be too difficult for a smart human back then to have used their ships to move around. Now, I know I've done videos saying that how can these people move around without ships. Now, we're talking 65,000 years ago is when mainstream say that they moved around, humans, and I'm in ships, and I'm saying no, that's not what they did. I'm saying that they were moved by the Anunnaki around, which makes more sense, until it comes up to the sort of 15, 20,000 years ago when humans were started to, well, in fact, to be honest, it was after the flood that the Anunnaki started to teach us humans anything really, other than their own offspring from Adam and Eve. They're the ones that got taught, Cain, Abel, Seth, etc. But obviously, once Noah came after that, the Anunnaki came back down after the flood, and that's when we started to learn agriculture and everything else. So that is when I think the maps for Antarctica would have been done. I think the Anunnaki probably would have helped us move around a lot more than we already did. But by then, obviously, there was people in different locations. Kyle Free Dog has wrote, thought the Greys were bad. Depends which Greys you're referring to. There's different types, and I don't think any of the Greys are bad. They're just doing what they need to do. So, for example, here on Earth we've got people that we don't know them, but there's people out there that are experimenting on children, experimenting on dogs, experimenting on all sorts of things. They go home, that person, as a loving husband, for example. So it doesn't mean they're bad. It just means they're doing what they need to do. Whether it's right or wrong from our point of view, to them it's perfectly fine. They could be doing it for pharmaceutical reasons. So to them it's fine, but to us, we think it's wrong. So the same thing goes with the Greys. They're abducting us. They're doing their experiments on us. Now, there's races out there that take us and use us as slaves, I believe, on other planets. I don't think, well, there's different types of Greys out there. So if the ones that are taking us, because some of these Greys are sort of robot android type creatures. So if, and the military now have got their own, we've managed to create our own, humans have managed to create Greys, which really muddies the water now, because when you get picked up by a Grey, we think it's an alien Grey, but really it's a military Grey, and sometimes the military people are with them. So it really muddies the water. But as a general rule, the Greys are not bad. The Zeta Greys are good, but the Orion Greys are just doing their job. Billy Grosses wrote, I've seen a Grey up close, they are real. I would love to know more on that. I'd probably try and pick your brains of every single detail if I could. You saw him, you carried on with in an orb. Okay, that's interesting. The orb was clear, Billy's wrote. That's interesting because I have heard people say that they've seen faces inside orbs. So that's not too dissimilar. Amanda's wrote, sorry, slacking today, work keep calling me. Yes, you should be listening to every word I say, Amanda, how dare you. Billy's wrote, I thought they were called the Watchers. You're probably, I don't know how far back. I'm guessing you're referring to the Nephilim. There's different names for back then. It's the same as the fallen angels. There's different names for them. But yeah, I mean, it's just which version do you call them? But they're all different. They're all the same sort of things. Mac is cheese, as wrote facts. Do you mean me give facts, or do you mean I'm right? I don't know. Sometimes people ask questions, but they don't sort of, they'll just write the word aliens and stuff, and then they kind of expect me to sort of cover exactly what they're thinking. So if you do have any questions, do ask. Try and pinpoint the question so I can really go into detail for you, as opposed to just sort of a generic thing. Like if someone says crop circles, I could go on about crop circles in one way, but they may be thinking, well, I want to know about the ones in America. And yes, crop circles are not just stuck to the UK. So if you do have any questions, feel free to ask in a sort of a kind of direct way, and I'll try and answer it the best I can on anything related to anything from my years of research. And some people out there think that my research is wrong, as you probably heard me say someone's comments earlier, but that's fine. I can't help but go with logic, and everything that I've said I believe is very logical, and it's more sense. Brendan, hi Brendan, has wrote, what's your views on flat Earth? Is it silly or true? Well, I've asked flat earthers questions, and they can't answer them. And all they seem to see, to me, it feels like they're trying to fill a square hole with a round peg, sort of thing. I just saw, I don't know if you guys know the Corridor crew. They're a group of CGI experts, and normally they do videos on what they watch on a movie, and then they see if they can either replicate it or do it better, which is fine. But they've been doing ones recently on aliens, alien spaceships or whatever they've seen, and they try and replicate it. And then the title of their videos are Alien Craft Debunked. Now, the problem I've got with that, and it goes back to the flat Earth side of it, is they say it's debunked because they can recreate it in CGI. And just because they can recreate something in CGI doesn't mean that's how it was done originally. That's the problem. And that goes along with the flat Earth. Just because you can say, this X, Y, and Z can be put down to a flat Earth, it doesn't mean that X, Y, and Z is how it does. So, for example, there was one person doing some experiments with water, etc. And I wrote on his thing, I said, look, you're equating small-scale objects, which is what he was doing. He's saying, if you have a ball and the water's got, and da-da-da. I said to him, you're equating small-scale objects to a planet that has its own gravity. You can't just say, because what we can do here in a small-scale test, we can't test it full size because we're not, we're tiny ants on this massive ball. So that's the problem with flat earthers. They're equating our physics for small scale, but they can't account for the size and the mass of the planet. So no, I personally think it's a globe. And as I say, I've asked many questions before of the flat earthers, and they can't answer it. I say to them, with a telescope, not including NASA, with a telescope, I can see the rings of Saturn, with a high-powered telescope, and I can see them going round this object. So is Saturn, for example, flat, or is it round? And if it's round, why can't Earth be round? And if it's flat, why is all the planets facing Earth flat? And they can't answer that. They come back and say, they're just light, they're this, they're that. And so they're trying to fit that round peg into a square hole sort of thing. And that's why I can't follow what they say, because unfortunately they try and make it up as they go to fit their narrative. Okay, sorry, just scrolling back to the questions. Neo Zeros wrote, hi there. Flat Earth is meant to throw you off. We live on an immovable plane with dimensions above and below. So I'm guessing, do you mean you are a follower of the flat Earth, or do you mean they're trying to confuse us? I'm not sure what you mean. Sorry about that. Brendan's wrote, what about the firmament? So the firmament, the problem is, again, these people read stuff and they don't research it. So they've read that the firmament is above the Earth, and above that, if you go back to the original text, where I always go back to the original, because no point in going to a copy, because anyone that's ever done the game Chinese Whispers know that it's not, you end up with something totally different. So you go back to the original text, and the original text, for example, I'm just using this one as an example, the Book of Enoch talks about the firmament, and Enoch says that above the Earth, which was originally called Kai, Ki, which is part of Enki, Ki. That's where we get the name Earth from. But anyway, so above the Earth is the firmament, and above the firmament is the heaven, and in the heaven is the stars. So we know that we can see the stars, so that means we can see heaven. But hang on, that don't work, because we shouldn't really be able to see heaven. So maybe heaven is wrong. Maybe the word should have wrote space, and that's correct. It should have been space. So above the firmament, which is atmosphere, that's all it is. So above the firmament, which is, they struggled to get through the atmosphere, and they wrote about it because their craft obviously could leave their planet because they had dwindled in atmosphere. They come to ours, they struggled to get through our atmosphere. And that's all it was. They struggled to get through it, as just we do right now. Otherwise, we wouldn't have heat shields on rockets and things like that. So they struggled to get through our atmosphere. But, you know, as I say in the Book of Enoch, they talk about above the firmament, which is the atmosphere, is space, not heaven, even though they wrote heaven. But they didn't write heaven. That's us translating heaven, because back then, no one knew the word space. No one even knew what space was. Obviously, the scribe, the person that was writing it, Enoch, didn't even know what space was. You know, there was no word for space, so we translated it into heaven. So above the firmament, in space, we see stars. So that's all the firmament was. It wasn't an impenetrable dome, because if it was an impenetrable dome, you know, some dome people say that outside of the dome is water. So then why didn't Enoch write water? And then why didn't, you know, then some dome people say that the stars that we see up at night are actually inside this dome. So then again, going back to the ancient text, why did he say above the firmament, atmosphere, is space and stars? Otherwise he would have said in the firmament. So unfortunately, silly people, and I don't mean to sound rude, but you know, if they're not going to do the research and they're just going to pick up words and say, it's a solid object, then you know, they have to be called out on it. Because if they're not going to do the work and research and just, you know, blindly say rubbish, then I'm blind. I'm allowed to call them idiots, if I may. They may call my stuff idiots, as you've seen earlier, so no problem there. Neo Zeros wrote, we live on an organic clock face, sun, moon, and the hands, the relations between day and night. So I'm guessing you believe it's a flat Earth. So Neo's wrote, the planets in the sky have no life. Why would the Earth be similar to a planet with no life? You mean no life forms? Well, Mars did actually have life. You know, even if you go down to the most simplest things, that as you know, way back in 2000 something, NASA admitted that there was a even though it was tiny, microscopic or microbial, pronounced that wrong, life was on Mars. So unfortunately, by saying there was no life, we kind of know there was life at least on one planet, even if it was microscopic. So that kind of rules out the no life on other planets. And of course, there's just 12 planets if you go by the Anunnaki, because they called it 12 planets, and they're the 12th planet. If you go by them, then yes, there's only 12 planets here, but they're on one of the planets, so that's another life form. If you believe in the which I'm still unsure on, the Valiant Thor story that he came from Venus, then that's another planet. But obviously there's billions and billions and billions and billions of planets out there. So to say we're the only planet with life is, again, very, I don't know what the word is, narrow-minded maybe. Brenda's wrote, but I think there is something in it. It doesn't add up completely. I'm just going to try and scroll back to the firmament. No, it's not. If you just got to, the argument is, the reason why they say that the firmament's there is because the military won't let people into Antarctica. But like I say, you can sail, and people have sailed around the ocean without hitting a wall. But the flat earthers with the dome, or the dome people, say that the dome covers the ocean as well, because it would have to. But people have sailed around the ocean. So the military basically have stopped people going to Antarctica because they found this crashed, or not crashed, but a massive alien ship underneath the ice, and that's what they're vehemently protecting and researching. So, unfortunately, the dome people say, the dome's in Antarctica, therefore the military are stopping us going there because we'll find out about the dome. That's, you see what I mean, going back to the square hole peg thing. When Nero Zero says, when you think about Earth, think about a snow globe. Yeah, I can't. Because I don't know if Nero Zero believes in aliens, and if there is, then they're coming through the dome, the impenetrable dome that's now not impenetrable because they can get through it. So you'd have to then pick your side. You can't say, well, there's aliens out, and then you'd have to say, no, there's no aliens out there. Dehydrate. Thank you. I'm going to have a drink now. Thank you, Flamingo, with the changed name. So Neo's wrote, the sky is a form of heaven. Space is just that, the waters, aka space between heavens. So what literature, forgetting, just pseudoscience, where did this originate from? See, I'm originating from the original sources, which I mentioned earlier. But where did this originate from? Who came up with the waters above the dome? Someone had to. And if it's just a guy that's got nothing, not been into space or anything, or not even been into the waters or anything like that, then you're just following blindly. And that's how, sadly, David Koresh in the Waco, you blindly follow someone who tells you something that you want to hear. I don't mean to sound rude, but I can point to writing in stone that talks about this, the firmament. So can you point to me to where it says something, not just a person saying it, because we could all make up crap, but if you could just point me to where it says water, or show me some evidence, I'd be interested to hear. Neo Zeros wrote, and the Van Allen belt proves that no one has ever left. I'm guessing you're referring to any craft going to the moon. Now, I'm not saying that we went to the moon, but I think we probably did later on. I don't think we did on the first Apollo mission. I think that was all fake. Plus, Neo Zeros wrote, plus the people who built NASA were scientists. Yeah, just because they were scientists that were brought over from Germany, yes, I agree with that. It doesn't make it a dome. again, square peg thing. I think people have latched onto all these little things and trying to make it fit. But yeah, I mean, that was called Operation Paperclip, where America brought over the scientists from Germany and then they created NASA. Supposedly, which I wasn't aware of, someone pointed it out to me, I think it was Amanda, that NASA was originally for underwater exploration. But of course, once they got hold of these space scientists, then that made sense. But yeah, just because they were Nazis that came over to work with the Americans doesn't mean there's a dome. I can't see a correlation with that. I mean, I guess you're going to say, well, because they would lie and say that we're sending rockets up. But again, I go back to the old GPS signals, and I asked one of these people about that suggested there was a dome, and he said the GPS that we use are on string on helium balloons, and I was just like, really? So unfortunately, I should start a cult, shouldn't I? And people should follow me. Neo says, I believe they are interdimensional aliens using stargates to cross. So they can get through the impenetrable thing because they're interdimensional beings. Could it just not be that there's no dome? Could it just be that they're aliens from one of these other billions and billions of planets out there? Could it just not be that? I'm just only because, again, the square peg trying to fit. How can aliens get here? Well, there's aliens, but they're interdimensional, and therefore they use a stargate to get through. Do you see what I mean? I really try not to be rude, but it seems like as soon as you ask the question, they make something up to fit that answer, instead of just saying, trillions of planets, trillions and trillions. Yeah, it makes sense that I don't know. Neos wrote, and I believe there are many species and civilizations underwater. I'm guessing underwater in our planet or underwater above the dome water. I got this from the Hebrew translation of Torah. Please point me to the bits where it talks about the water above Earth and the impenetrable dome. I would, if you wouldn't mind doing that. I mean, I am rereading a lot of the stuff that I've read many years back, but I haven't got the sort of time to suddenly divert from where I'm trying to do my videos to suddenly go off and hunt for one tiny little word that may say, we struggle to get through the atmosphere. So if you could point me in that, I would be very much appreciated. In Genesis, this is described. Described as what? Described as a solid object, or impenetrable, or difficult to get through. Amanda's wrote, watch Inside Job on Netflix. I've been watching a few of them. Should have known you'd watch them. So this is a new cartoon that's on Netflix, and it's about literally every conspiracy you can think of. Is real. This is the gist of it. And there's this woman that works there, and her job is sort of like to keep things fairly quiet from the public, so doing whatever she can. If you're into conspiracies, watch that show, because I don't think people that are into conspiracies will get half of the jokes. I mean, I was listening to it, and there was one of the jokes was, our budget cuts. We've got to do some budget cuts. I'll tell you what, instead of doing all these crop circles with the bits coming off of them, let's just do one circle. I thought that was really clever. Conspiracies, that's a good thing. Neo Zeros wrote, but when the military shows us videos, they never leave orbit, or they go towards the ocean usually. So I've done a video, I don't know if you've seen it, Neo, where I show different cameras that go up. Now, forgetting whether it's flat or round for a moment, I've showed different cameras going up in different locations around the planet. Now, the cameras always are in the middle of the planet, even when they're near Australia, which is near the edge of the firmament, apparently. So when the camera turns round, you should see a shorter distance than you should when it turns back round and you see all the way, to England and all the way further up. But it's not. It's always in the centre, and the reason why it's in the centre is because if you're on a ball, no matter where you are, you're in the centre. And that's just the way it is, and that's the reason why the cameras always show. You'll never see the edge of the planet. It's always equal distance when the camera goes up. So that's unfortunate. That's my take on that. That's how I sort of debunk that. Amanda's wrote, just started X-Files from the beginning. Well done. Yeah. I've watched them a few times actually. There's some great episodes in there that are really trying to give away the things. I've listened to Chris Carter, a couple of times, and he's very clued up on stuff, and he was back then really clued up. And supposedly X-Files was actually, I don't know if you guys know this, but supposedly taken from an FBI agent. No, not Mulder. And he wrote some memoirs, if I remember correctly, and the memoirs went missing. I might be getting this slightly wrong. It's been a long time since I heard the story. This guy was on Coast to Coast talking about it. And then next thing you know is X-Files came out, and the guy seems to think that X-Files was based on his time at, because some of the stories are very, very similar to what he'd wrote in his diaries, or I can't remember if it was diaries or it was his some paperwork for the military, whatever it was. But and this guy was a genuine deal. He was on Coast to Coast, and he was actually a genuine FBI agent that worked for the secret side of paranormal. So so that's probably, if that is true, that's probably where Chris Carter got a lot of his true information from the beginning. But if you watch X-Files and you're halfway clued up, you'll see they're really trying to give us the information out there, but in a TV series. Neo's wrote, one day we will discuss this in further detail. I have a link to show you that explains the science. Yeah, I mean, I even watched one last night where the guy was talking about the sea level being flat and stuff like that. And if the sea's flat, why, because water always finds a level, so that's why it's called sea level, and yet things underneath, blah, blah, blah. So I've watched the science, but when I ask the questions, they can't answer them. And if you can't answer the questions, but the globe people can answer the questions, then you got to think that maybe it is a globe, and yes, there may be some science behind making it look flat, but I just, like if I draw a picture on a piece of paper, to me, so I'll tell you what, this is a good one. It was from a film years ago, a TV film actually, called The Billionaires Boys Club with Judd Nelson. If anyone's watched it, it was a great film. Anyway, Judd turns around to this person and says, would you kill a person? And this person says, no, of course not. He says, okay, what happens if you come in and that person was just doing something to your mum, this bad person? Would you then kill him? And the guy goes, yeah. So he said, okay, so you've crossed the line there. You would kill someone. He goes, well, only in that sort of circumstance. Okay, fine. Then he held up a piece of paper, a white piece of card, and he says to this guy, I've got this white piece of card. Would you say it's white? Would you bet your life on it that it's white? And the guy's looking at the paper and the card, and he's looking at it, and he's moved up close to it, and Judd's holding it out, and the guy goes, yeah, I would bet my life on it that it's white. And Judd turns it round and it's black on the other side. And he said, well, I wouldn't. So the point is, I know I digressed there, but I thought that was a great story. The point is, going back to the flat earth, is you can kind of see what you want to see if you're looking for it. Do you see what I mean? But sometimes the other side of it isn't what you think it is. Do you think telepathy is real? Yes, 100%. Yes, 110% real. Oh no, you're making me say something. So I I was with a girlfriend at the time, and for about 5 years, and it got to a point. Now she had an operation on her head, on her skull. She had a tumor, so she had to have a massive operation. But anyway, after that, um, I would be thinking something totally random, and then she would say it, or she would be thinking something, and I'd say it, and it got so to a point that it got annoying. So in the end, one day I thought to myself, right, okay, we've got to test this. So I was laying down in bed, and I said to her, right, let's see if I can actually pick up your thoughts. So I said to her, right, pick a card, like a pack of cards. I said, pick a card and a colour, whatever, and a number, and I'll see if I can pick it up off of you. Now, I'm not saying I'm the one with the skills. It could have just been because of her operation that she was putting it out there. But anyway, um, so she thought of a card. I can't remember what it was, but I, suddenly said seven of diamonds or whatever it was, and she said, "My God, that's right." So I said, "Okay, wow, all right." So, okay, we're on the right track. Then we went through different things. We went through colours. We did about 6 different things. The last one was animals. I said, right, okay, choose an animal. Now she was thinking of a frog, and I was really struggling trying to get the thing on it. And later on, after we'd gone through it, so I said rabbit, and she goes, no, it's a frog. She says, but I was thinking of the frog jumping, jump, jump, jump. So could I have got, thinking of a rabbit just from the jumping? But anyway, the next one I asked her to do was think of a person, which was, like one in Christ knows how many billion. I didn't get that one, but the point was, I got enough for me to say that was definitely real. And then I started looking up how can I make money on doing this sort of thing. I'm guessing it's only with her. I don't think I've ever had that experience with anyone else. So I think possibly her brain surgery had allowed that to happen. I don't, I'd love to think it was me, but I think it was probably more her putting out the signal than me receiving it. Do you know, I even contacted famous sort of, like Darren Brown. I don't know if you guys have heard of him, people like that, and said, how can you make money off of this? And in the end, the bottom line was you can't really make money unless you can read anyone's thoughts, because you can read someone's thoughts and you could probably do a show, where they could, but that's about it really. You can't, I couldn't work away anyway. So that was that. So I think telepathy is real, just from my own experience. Neo's wrote, the one I have for you is a lot deeper than that, so I'll get to you. If you can, I'll watch it, absolutely. I may have questions because I don't want to blindly follow it, but thank you, I will. What do you think on Emery, on the disclosure? Is he real? I was waiting for someone. I've mentioned him a few times on live chats. So that's the guy called Emery Smith. I'd love to know your thoughts. This is someone called Lowboy3000. I'd love to know your thoughts on him. I struggle with him. He knows. Now I know he does a disclosure, but if you watched him on Coast to Coast, for example, he talks about various different aliens, which is fine because he's a biologist, stroke botanist, I guess. I'm just going by the things that he said he's done. But what gets me is he can describe how the teleportation works from the top of Earth to the inner Earth, and he describes it all. Now, I know he's not military, but he must have been under some NDA, non-disclosure agreement. You can't just let civilians into a complex and then stand there and chat to them on the workings on this device that no one knows about, that gets you to the inner Earth, for him to get into the inner Earth a few times and go and take samples and things like that, and then come back. That struggles. Yes, he's probably an excellent whatever it is that he does, but I just think he knew a hell of a lot. I don't know. I struggle on that. Right, Low Boys wrote, thanks for replying, Low Boy. I think this is Low Boy saying this, I think he knows things, but I think he embellishes. Thank you, that's a good point. Low Boy says he was in the Air Force. I thought he was not part of that thing. Maybe he was in the Air Force then, but I remember him saying he's not military-ish, so maybe he was Air Force but not in the group. I don't know. I can't help but remember him saying he wasn't. But if he was in the Air Force, maybe he's changed his changed his comments again. Low Boys wrote, still good entertainment. Yeah, I mean he's come up with some things. The thing was, I've been trying to do this for 30 years. He's come up with things I've never heard of before. No one else has ever said them. So, is he? Yeah, I don't know. I struggle still. Low Boys wrote he's not in the military anymore. Okay, so it's coming up to the time that I have to leave now, guys. So thank you so much for some excellent questions. I do look forward to Neo's info. If you can send it to me in some way, just put a note on one of my videos. I try and reply or read to everything. This will go on YouTube at some point. See if anyone wants to listen to this back, they can, and keep watching my videos because there's virtually no, I'm getting like a handful of views now. It's really sad because I try my best, and just because I'm not a half-naked woman, I still want views. So thank you guys, and I'll thank you, Brendan, for saying thank you, and thank you for all the likes that people sent, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Keep watching my videos. What I'll do is I'll stick another one up as soon as I leave, just for you guys. I'll release another one. All right, be safe and talk to you soon. Bye.